and welcome to the Business Standard Morning Show. I'm Nazia Iqbal, and here's a look at the stories for the day. Large parts of India witnessed heat wave last year, affecting wheat production and forcing the country to restrict wheat exports. The threat of extreme weather has re-emerged again. India's major wheat growing regions are reportedly witnessing unusually high temperatures for this time of the year when crops are very sensitive to heat. There are warnings of output loss triggered by the unusually warm weather. So is India's wheat crop under threat? Bhashwar Kumar answers.
(33.6°C). That was the temperature in Delhi on February 20th. It was the season's highest up to that point. Meteorologists said that the temperature in Delhi on that day was among the highest in the past 10 years. They said this could signal the early onset of summer this year. The India Meteorological Department has warned that higher day temperatures may have a negative effect on the wheat crop, which is approaching its reproductive growth period. The centre has also set up a committee to monitor the impact of temperature rise on India's wheat crop. The committee, which will issue advisories to farmers, is to be headed by the Agriculture Commissioner. Wheat is expected to account for over a third of the total food grains produced in India in 2022-2023. India's wheat production has steadily risen from 2015-2016 to 2020-2021. But this was followed by a 2.5% decline in wheat yields, with last March being the warmest recorded in India since 1901. The grain filling period for wheat starts towards the end of February and concludes at the end of March. However, wheat production is expected to recover in 2022-2023. During the week starting February 20th, private weather forecasting agency Skymet does not foresee any relief from the unusual spike in temperatures for the northwest, central and west coast regions of India. So, do agri-experts think India's wheat crop is under threat?
As per the IMD forecast released today, the temperatures in northwest India is likely to stay above by 3 to 5% in the next 5 days. Of course, wheat is one of the most critical crops. It is at a very critical stage of reproduction where the grain is filling, and this stage is very sensitive to high temperatures, and therefore the threat is clearly there. But there are some good news clearly. So, we hear of news about steady winds in Madhya Pradesh, which is likely to maintain the temperatures for the crop. Likewise, we have news about a fog in the morning in the north, and that is also helping retain some moisture in the crop. Of course, the government has been working overtime by providing right advisories about increasing irrigation or about mulching for the vegetable crops. But overall, I think we are at a critical stage. Things don't look as bad, but next few days will have to be looked upon very closely.
Suddenly, there is an increase in temperature of 3 to 5 degree maximum temperature increase in the northern Indian belts, as well as in states like Gujarat, as well in parts of Maharashtra, even East India, there is an increase in temperature. As of now, the grain filling stage across the northern Indian belt will take another couple of days. It has started in some places like in Haryana and others. In other places, it will gradually start. Now, what has to be noticed is the temperature from end of February to end of March. So in this period, if there is an abnormal increase in average temperature, it might cause your yield to go down. Now, yield goes down, obviously the production goes down.
For his part, Union Agriculture Secretary Manoj Ahuja has said that the rise in temperatures won't impact the early sown wheat varieties. He has also said that heat-resistant varieties have been sown on large tracts this time. In December, the government informed Parliament of its intention to promote heat-resistant wheat varieties. In fact, the Indian Institute of Wheat and Barley Research distributed over 3,700 quintals of heat-resistant wheat seeds during the 2021-2022 crop season. Private companies have also been roped in for seed production. But if the current wheat crop does come under pressure, what would be the impact?
If the production goes down, government will have a problem in procuring wheat this time again. Last year, you must remember that we had targeted 44 million tons of wheat procurement. We ended up just around 19 million tons. So by end of March, we are seeing a wheat stock which is just around marginally, which is more than what the buffer stocks norm are. So government needs to replenish its stocks very urgently. That is why they are doing all things aggressively to bring down the market price around the level of MSP.
The latest challenge comes when cereal inflation jumped to a record 16.12% year-on-year in January, with wheat and flour being the primary drivers. Much will now depend on how the weather plays out in the days to come. But in the long run, the early onset of summer seems to have become a climate change-driven trend that is likely to continue. This means more substantive measures will be needed to address heat stress going forward.
India's wheat harvest is the biggest in the world after China, but extreme weather could threaten food security and drive up food inflation in the country. Meanwhile, the Indian aviation sector is optimistic about seizing a bigger market share of international operations after Air India's expansion plans and record order for aircraft. Tariq Ahmed answers what it will take to challenge the dominant Gulf carriers on international skies. International airlines have been dominating India's overseas flying market. Foreign airlines carry 56.25% of the total passengers and 87% of the total cargo to and from India. If we look closely at the share of passengers and freight that are carried to and from India, foreign airlines, especially the big three from the Gulf region, Qatar Airways, Etihad, and Emirates Airlines, enjoy the lion's share. According to the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, 70 international airlines and 6 domestic airlines conduct international services to and from India. Out of that, about 14 of the Gulf airlines carry about 28% of the total passengers and 30% of the total cargo. Their advanced hub and spoke model helped them achieve this.
As far as the Gulf airlines are concerned, you see, the whole region is located at the crossroads between East and West. So they've got the geographic advantage, which India does, but that's besides the points here. They don't have a domestic aviation market, so they rely on markets like India to fuel their hubs. And they've obviously been able to build world-class aviation infrastructure and add aircraft to their fleet, which can operate these flights.
Major Indian airlines Air India and Indigo couldn't come close to matching the Gulf's dominant position in the growing international aviation space. Air India and Air India Express together have less than 20% and Indigo has less than 17% of the international passenger services. All other Indian airlines together make 7.6% of the share. Indian airlines have an even less share of international cargo services. In September quarter, Indian Airlines together had only 13% of the total cargo to and from India. Air India and Air India Express together had 8.7% of the total share. But analysts expect a change in airspace dominance following Air India's recent expansion plans in domestic and international markets. Out of the 470 aircrafts that Air India had ordered from Airbus and Boeing, 70 of them are wide bodied. In its existing fleet, Air India has 45 wide bodied aircrafts. Indigo is also likely to expand its international services in the coming years. In a written reply in Rajya Sabha, VK Singh, the Minister of State for Civil Aviation, said the ministry has invited the industry to make India an aviation hub. Considering the strategic location, India can be the center for connecting West Asia, Central Asia, Africa, and Southeast Asia. With world class airports in Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Kochi, the country can have multiple international aviation hubs. So, with the fleet expansion of Air India and India's effort to become an aviation hub, will Indian Airlines be able to grab a dominant share of international services in the coming years? Here's what Satyendra Pandey of Aviation Advisory ATTV says.
The aircraft order Air India has put in includes 40 orders for the A350 aircraft and another 10 for the Boeing 777. What this will enable them to do is replace a portion of the current fleet and also get in some expansion capacity. So that will then enable a product upgrade on board, perhaps rollout of new cabins. You're already seeing a premium economy cabin that's gaining a lot of traction both in India and overseas. And it will help with aircraft economics, better fuel burn, and also emissions, which is a growing topic. But I would repeat that at the very basic, Air India has to match the products and schedule offerings that its competitors, especially the Gulf airlines, put out. Because without that, there's not even a competition. The customer will not pay a premium for an inferior product.
Experts suggest that with the new aircraft order, Air India will be in a position to achieve fleet modernization and expansion of services. This will give them an edge to compete with the dominant Gulf carriers. But matching the services and schedule offerings of the competitors will also be critical for Indian Airlines to win a dominant share of the Indian overseas aviation market. Back to the agri sector, a surge in global demand for agri commodities, including rice, led to a sharp increase in its prices, which prompted the government to place export curbs on such varieties of the cereal last year. However, rice exporters, especially those dealing in basmati rice, have seen a massive increase in their fortunes on the bourses. So, can they sustain these gains? Harshita Singh's report has the answers.
Shares of rice exporters saw a stellar run in the calendar year 2022 given the surge in global demand and prices of the staple. KRBL, LT Foods and Chamanlal Sethia exports notched gains of 61%, 54% and 35% respectively during the year as compared to a 4% rise in the BSE Sensex. Analysts expect firm global and domestic rice demand in 2023 to keep the stock prices piping hot going ahead. Given the run-up, any fall in prices, they say, will be a good opportunity for investors to buy these stocks.
The Russia-Ukraine war led to a surge in agriculture commodity prices, including rice, as both countries are one of the biggest producers in agriculture and food globally. India is the second largest rice producer after China and the largest exporter of rice globally. Due to the tight supply of rice, many countries started procuring rice from India, which triggered the rice prices and benefited the organized players in the rice market. We believe that the financial power LT Foods, KRBL and Chamanlal Sethia will sustain due to their expanding export market, improving basmati rice consumption in India and negligible impact of export duty hike. As mentioned earlier, LT Foods, KRBL, and Chaman Setia are focusing more on basmati rice, which is not included in 20% export duty. Hence, we are not expecting any significant impact on the financial performance of these stocks. We continue to remain bullish on the rice stocks.
According to industry experts, the competitive prices of Indian rice as against other countries and lower basmati rice exports from flood-affected Pakistan have driven demand and export volume growth. CRISIL Ratings estimates basmati rice exports to rise 11% on year to 4.4 million tons in FY23 on strong demand from key markets such as the Middle East and the US. While prices of cereals including wheat and rice are expected to remain elevated this year amid looming risks of heat waves and a likely deficit monsoon due to El Nino. Besides, A.K. Prabhakar of IDBI Capital says it is important to keep a tab on the inventory levels of rice companies as aged rice generally gets better prices.
The short-term thing doesn't impact these companies, KRBL or your other rice stocks. It doesn't get impacted by the short-term volatility because they have enough stocks available, and that is something which normally benefits. When the prices go up, they benefit. When the prices come down, it is a drag on them. I think it is KRBL. Their total inventory which they have given in the presentation is 4,435 crores. But whatever I can see, KRBL, yes, it looks good to me for 3 to 6 months basis. And the inventory which I said is 50% of their market cap. And the valuation is not expensive. So if it comes down, you can buy.
Thus, investors should remain selective on these stocks and buy only on dips from a long-term perspective. Today, equity markets will react to the minutes of the latest policy meetings of the RBI and the US Federal Reserve.
Eknath Shinde became the Chief Minister of Maharashtra in July last year. 7 months later, the Election Commission of India allotted the Shiv Sena party symbol, a bow and an arrow, to the Shinde-led party. How does the Election Commission of India allot symbols to political parties? And what happens in case of separation of party members, like with Shiv Sena? Let's find out with Tushar Verma.
The Election Commission of India derives its power from Article 324 of the Indian Constitution. The article postulates supervision, direction and control of all elections in India through the Election Commission. In the present system, the allotment of party symbols by the Election Commission is slightly tricky. The Commission came out with an order in 1968 called the Symbols Reservation and Allotment Order 1968. The order governs how parties apply for a particular symbol of choice, how it is allotted, and other aspects of the same. Two types of symbols available in the ECI's list are free and reserved. Reserved symbols are exclusively for recognized state level and national level parties such as BJP, Indian National Congress, SP, and BSP. Free symbols, on the other hand, are the ones available for use by both unrecognized parties and independent candidates. Say you have organized your own political party to fight elections, and now you want a particular symbol. How will you go about it? If you're thinking that parties design the symbols and then take EC's approval, you are mistaken. An independent candidate or a party, after registering itself with the EC, chooses a symbol from an exhaustive list maintained by the Commission. As of March 2021, there were 198 free symbols for candidates and parties to choose from. These symbols range from binoculars, biscuit, bread toaster, and even a bicycle pump. If the party or the candidate secures enough votes or number of seats, then based on that number, the symbol is reserved for that particular candidate or party for 6 years. In these 6 years, the party or candidate can expand its base by winning more elections. This ensures that the symbol remains in the reserved list for the party or the independent candidate. While registering with the EC for the first time, all political parties and independent candidates have to give preferences for at least 3 symbols from the list. The EC then evaluates the relationship between the chosen symbol and the party's ideology and principles. This is based on an application filed by the party or the candidate. When a party splits, all the factions claim the right to be represented through the original symbol. In such a scenario, the Election Commission has to determine which faction truly represents the principles and ideology of the party. The Election Commission has a few tests at its perusal to determine which faction deserves to be represented using the party symbol. In the case of Maharashtra's Eknath Shinde versus Uddhav Thackeray, the EC relied on the test of majority in the Legislative Assembly. It found that out of all the undivided Shiv Sena MPs, Shinde had the support of majority MLAs and MPs. As with the other two tests, the Commission said it could not rely on tests of aims and objectives as both the factions claimed to support the original ideology of the party. With the rest of the party constitution, EC found the 2018 amendment to the Shiv Sena constitution invalid as the party did not submit the changes to the EC at the time. Hence, EC solely relied on the test of majority. Party symbols are crafted keeping the ordinary citizen in mind, such that they are easy to understand even if the voter cannot read. The fact that the authority of party symbol allocation rests with the EC shows that it is the chief authority for all elections in India after the Supreme Court.
I'm backed by the nation's trusted bank, SBI, the banker to every Indian.
Well, that's all we have for you today. We will be back with more news and analysis in our next episode. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.